Once we've made some early adjustments in a painting, gone from something a little awkward through a planning stage for strength and good composition, where do we go next with this? Let's examine a couple masters and then follow through to see what explorations and designs we find. This is in Procreate, and I had worked some paintings so we can see that even with a lot of our master artists, what I want to be focusing on in this particular painting is the division. Let me back up a little bit. I had talked last time about connecting the darks. Remember the video on connecting the darks? And you don't really have to connect the lights as much, but by pulling the darks together, it helps make that painting one cohesive unit. And the design needs to be good, and each element on its own needs to be strong and interesting. And sometimes we get carried away on things. And sometimes we want those quiet places and areas you can calm down on. For instance, on this area here for Degas, that one, oh, that's not working. That's kind of a resting area. It's quiet. There's not a lot going on like there are like in this area. I wanted a circle, but that's not working. That area has more going on. So some resting areas are important. If we analyze his painting here, and I've broken it into some layers, if we look at the darks first, I kind of did a quick overall sketch on the darks. And we can see when we take the image away, that the darks kind of create an interesting shape. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That by themselves, there's a nice balance now between the lights and the darks in the painting, and then there's some areas of interest and detail. If we go to the light areas, and I've highlighted the lighter areas here, and we take away the painting and look at just those light areas, we can see they're more dotted around. They're catching the light. That's where our sparkle comes from. So between the darks and the light, and then that mauve color is kind of the neutral area, we have simplified the design, and it helps us to see, and you can turn it upside down and around and make sure that it's well balanced. Here's another painting. This is Winslow Homer's Fog Warning. Powerful. If we look at this one in the same way, I'm going to connect a lot of the dark areas. Now I see that fog bank in the background as the middle tone. It's not really light and it's not dark. So I'm trying to get down to 3 values in a painting: the darks, the lights, and the midtones. So by pulling together the darks here, I've followed through, and the different images connect. And you can see how those connect. And if we look at it by itself, they are pretty much all connected. And again, you can turn one way or the other, and this creates an interesting abstract by itself. And if it's strong and it's interesting, then we know it's going to be a basis of a good painting. And then looking at the lights, you got the light sky. There's a couple of lights. Let me take this away so you can see. Whoops, sorry, that one. See the wave in the background is light. The 2 fish are. There's a little peak of light by the boat to the left. So those are our light areas. Again, it rather bounces around. Your sparkle is bouncing around where the darks are basically connected. Sometimes it'd be nice to get to this stage and then just stop and go, here's my abstract painting. The trick is knowing exactly when to stop, yes? All right, so my initial photograph was this. And when you look at a photo like this, and then you're going to do a sketch from it or a painting from it, this is the time when you want to analyze. What are my darks? What are my lights? What's my basic composition? The thing I first did would be to take and divide generally my picture in thirds. So I've got the rule of thirds, generally speaking. My center of interest, I want it to be up near this area there. So it's at the intersection of two of those thirds. And it can be at any one of these. It could be here if we wanted, or here or here. Any one of those is a good place to have it. And if you're going to have a secondary focus, it's good to have it at one of the others. Usually balance that out. So that was what I wanted. I wanted to draw the viewer into this painting, into that distance, to exaggerate these shadows coming across, to use the shadows coming across the foreground without really taking away from that focus in the distance. That was going to be my primary. And these shadows will bring us back toward it. And that's when I drew the lines across to show that the light is off to that far left is where the sun is. And the shadows need to consistently come down from that. So that's, I kind of plan out at first the design of the painting. These lines are going to go back here and pull the viewer back in. What I have to watch out for is eventually these trees. These trees can become so strong that they could pull the eye away from that center focus, the feeling I want to get at pulling that viewer back into the distance. When I do add trees in, they need to be consistent with the shadow. The base of the shadow, the tree is where the shadow falls off from. So we need to think about these details as we are painting and planning. So with this, now I'm in the process of thinking, where do I go next with this? Because if I say I threw in some dark trees here, it's so strong, it's so intense. And I don't think that's what I want. So sometimes it's good to get a painting to this stage, back off and live with it for a little while. And I could throw in some trees, and now they're not so strong that they're going to distract from the rest of the painting. Mm-hmm. And I think I want to keep this middle to lighter values in the whole painting instead of doing darks. My habit is to go with high contrast, and I'm trying to back off from this. So I might want this to be more of a tonalist painting. What I want to do, I believe, is really emphasize the lighter areas back here, to pull the eye back as if to lead them into that distance. I'll have to define this area a little better, but maybe add a little more detail back there to add contrast and detail in that area. This one, I like this brush, Rectangle, because it looks kind of like pastel marks. And then more detail around the trees here, but softer in the foreground. I mean, that's one nice thing about this Procreate, is because you can try things out. We used to take pieces of colored magazine, and lay on a painting before finishing it. Now we can do it in something like this. And if that doesn't work out, you can just undo it, which is great. Mm-hmm. So I did somewhat of a vignette in this. So it keeps the eye flowing around within the painting. And my diagonals, there's this diagonal going back of the road, and then the lighter overlay of those other diagonals. So I've got multi-layers kind of playing off each other. But the primary focus is pulling into the distance and the lighter shadows. I'm pretty excited to see where this painting is going next. It's a partnership between me and the artwork. And by planning and using Procreate to help me with new ideas, I don't mess up the painting and I can create something strong and beautiful. You can do this too. Remember to subscribe and click the bell below so you get notified of the next video. Meanwhile, do consider joining my Patreon. The link is below in the description.